All aboard! Next stop, Chicago Junction.
And welcome again to another recording of Chicago Junction, the radio program that is all about the amazing world of railroading, both the many facets of the industry and model railroading in particular. I am your announcer, Brian Blue, and now here is our boss, the head of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, and the chief electrical engineer, Mr. John DeVita.
Well, thank you very much, Bri. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Chicago Junction from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Monday, June 17th, the year 2017. Today, the panel will be talking about railroads and model railroads. And now to start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. Brian.
Oh, thank you, John. Now, normally at this time, we would be announcing our new chief dispatcher, who keeps us under control. Unfortunately, the inmates are running the show today. So I am, by unanimous vote, I am acting without my vote as sort of the head here.
You didn't step back fast enough.
That is true. As you know, I am Brian Valou. I've been in I am retired Navy, plus railroad engineer and conductor. I also belong to several museums, Reading Historical Society Museum in Hamburg, Pennsylvania, the Pacific Southwest Railway Museum, life member in Campo in San Diego, California, and also the out at the LaPorte at the Heston Steam Museum, plus several large-scale modeling clubs, both in G-gauge and in Lionel O-gauge. And on my right, I have...
This is Doug Kenyuk. I'm a longtime rail fan and officer in the Railroad and Short Lines Club of Chicago. I teach computers at the Robo-Wright College, and I'm an N-scaler and a longtime rail historian.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Berry. I am a retired sergeant from the Chicago Police Department and a lifelong Lionel collector and operator, a member of the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club, and, just really enjoy trains, especially real steam trains.
I'm Ron Stock, and I'm a retired librarian from Eisenhower Public Library, serving Norwich Harwood Heights. Been a long-time train buff and fan, and wherever I go, I take Amtrak, and just overall interested in trains and the knowledge our panel has.
Well, okay. Now you got the rest of the crew. So on this wonderful Thursday, the 13th of July, let's get on board and highball it down.
All right. Well, I got a few stories as usual. Amtrak trains temporarily returned to Grand Central Station in New York. Apparently, there's been some track problems in Penn Station, and some of the Amtrak trains now being routed into Grand Central while they fix the tracks. So the services, Amtrak will provide 6 trains between Albany, Rensselaer, and Grand Central, and the Empire service will be going in and out of Grand Central Terminal.
Remember a few years back they had the plans to dig the tunnel?
Yep.
From New York to Jersey?
Yep.
And that which would alleviate a lot of the problems and backup bottlenecks. Mr. Christie is the one that stopped them from doing it.
Yep.
And if they had started then when he came into office, next year it'd have been finished.
Well, he didn't want him messing up his beach. Okay, Metra opened the new Maywood station. So Maywood got themselves a brand new 900 square foot station. Replaces the existing outdoor shelter. Side note on that, I remember I was out in Utah and I tracked down the Provo Amtrak station. That was a bus shelter. They said it was a cooperation between Metra and Maywood to build it. Here's one that you'll like. Saginaw Timber number 2 steam locomotive is moving back to Oregon. Apparently there was a dispute with the what was it? With Mid-Continent on storing it. Now it's going over to the Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad and be used over there. It's a 1912 Bowen, and it's been traveling all over the place. It says it will travel on 3 tractor trailers to make it to Oregon. So it's going to cost $200,000 to move it. So it's interesting. It's going to be on the Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad, joins 2-truck Heisler, Craig Mountain Lumber number 3, and McLeod Railroad number 25, 262. So I thought, you're a steam guy, you would love that.
Oh yeah, that's the one that we actually have been following. That's the one where whose wife passed away, unfortunately, when they were testing it. And that's the one that's been in the courts.
Okay. Now here's an interesting, this one's from Spain. A company out there called OGI has figured out how to make freight trucks that automatically gauge themselves as it goes down tracks. So their freight truck can now operate across multiple systems instead of unloading and reloading the cars or taking the cars like they did for East Broadtop and put them on separate trucks. They were talking about how in Spain alone they got 9 different gauges. This would allow freight cars now to travel across the whole country.
This I want to see.
Me too.
Yeah. It says there it's the OGI systems being certified for 2 types of wagons. Both are 16-ton, so we're talking the small cars, not the the single trucks. It says gauge changing test runs are being done right now at maximum load for certification. So yeah, that's what caught my eye was, because I was thinking about the Britain-China train, which has to change. They have to unload and reload 14 times to make it across the continent because of the track gauges. So that's why that story caught my eye. Here's one. Elon Musk, being the guy who makes a fortune living off government grants, wants to bore a tunnel between downtown O'Hare and put his maglev in. Oh, you didn't hear that story. Yeah, it says faster trains to O'Hare could depend on boring plan. Catchy tune.
Pardon the pun.
He was trying to bore it's remember the old mail carriers, or you go to the bank and you put your thing in and it shoots through the tube?
Yeah, the pneumatic tube system.
Right. Same here, except it would be done with magnets instead of air. Okay. But it's the same thing. You bore a tunnel and you run through a tube between 2 points.
What happens when Busha gets on the maglev and her pacemaker seizes?
And,
or her eyes start glowing?
So anyway, he was supposed to put this in L.A., between downtown L.A. and the airport in California. Has been, okay, yeah, but we got a high-speed train type deal. So he met with the mayor, and the mayor says, yeah, that's a good idea. Now they're trying to figure out how to pay for it. So it's one of those things that came up in the news. The popular media went nuts over it. They thought it was a great idea until they found out that that's all it was just an idea. They thought there was plans and it was ready to go. It's just they said it would just, he's got this new boring technique that's supposed to say he could bore it in 1 month between the 2 points. He said he got a new machine that does this.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey, that's where dreams come from.
So, and that's it. It was a fairly quiet month, except for everybody getting hit by trains all over the place. It was just a terrible month for that.
Yes.
The last 4 weeks. Then there was the flooding You want to tell us about the botanical gardens and how your trains are faring?
They're still on the shelves. They've stayed up there, but the water, from what I understand, is going down.
It's probably good you didn't run them. They might have gotten knocked off the track by one of them carps. Before the show started, we were talking about the piece of news footage they showed with carp swimming down the main street in one of the northern suburbs. Pretty good-sized carps.
You know, for all the rain that everybody's had, actually in Park Ridge, we really didn't. I mean, it looked like, it came down quick, but then leveled off, and there wasn't really any flooding in my area.
Friday afternoon, we drove down. We got caught in a bad rainstorm going through Effingham, and literally in the space of a quarter mile, we went from clear sky to complete wet out. I had to stand on the brakes to avoid hitting the car that I had last seen 100 feet in front of me. And it was a small blue car, and it was completely obscured by the rain.
Well, this is the first time I've heard of the Milwaukee line being shut down. Hiawatha service stopping.
Yeah, it was in
because of
Libertyville.
flooding.
Yeah.
It was in Libertyville. From the aerial shots they showed on the news, it looked like about 1.5 feet of water over the tracks, and some washouts.
They showed water running across Metro tracks in one of the northern suburbs.
Yeah, in against the Fox Lake line.
It was
for that.
over the top of the ties and halfway up the rail.
Oh, see, that's no problem. You
And-
can still see the rail. That's no problem.
And a nice ripple.
It must have been the carp.
The
coming
rain,
down.
not the wine. No carp.
Didn't have a ticket.
Okay.
They had tide passes.
In the next month, we're going to have a solar eclipse, which is interesting for rail fans for about 2.5 minutes. If you're in the total eclipse, it'll be like taking pictures at midnight. And it's going to be August 21st, 2017. And it covers quite a bit of the United States. I would assume if you go to Adler Planetarium, they'll tell you how much of an eclipse that Chicago will have. It seemed like some of the places that they mentioned for good eclipse watching was Marysville, Kansas, Kansas City, St. Louis, Cape Girardeau, Missouri, Carbondale, Illinois, and North Carolina's Great Smoky Scenic Railroad were some of the opportunities to see.
They say the epicenter's just south of Carbondale.
Yeah.
Well, Operation Lifesaver will be there.
Oh, cool.
They also said that $109 a night motel room, very close to the epicenter, is now booking for $921 if you can find a room.
Oh yeah, when we were at our last safety meeting, Chip Pugh, the state coordinator, was talking. He says, "Yeah, they're talking 70 miles from Carbondale. All rooms are booked."
Basically, the time period for totality is for 2 minutes and 40 seconds. So you better be a fairly good camera person.
And up here in Chicago, they're saying 2:27.
Okay. That's not too bad for us. One thing which I found kind of interesting, there's 2 court cases coming up which had fatal rail wrecks. One was in Canada and Quebec, where 47 people got killed in the town with the oil tankers that derailed and took out a lot of the town. They got the dispatcher and a manager all are up for criminal charges and could actually get life of imprisonment, which surprised me a little bit. Following a little bit of train history and stuff and accidents, I guess we're getting tougher on the railroad personnel. The interesting thing about that case is that part of the problem was that the fire department, when the train started smoking and catching fire, they released a few of the braking mechanisms that the engineer had already put down, although he didn't have as many as he should have. I think it was like three or four lines short of what was required to hold that train. And then the other one is the wreck in Philadelphia, which happened May 13th, 2015. And they were going to have misdemeanor charges filed in involuntary manslaughter by the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. And in the meantime, a passenger, one of the deceased passenger's family filed a suit, and the municipal judge wanted to prosecute the case, so the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office said they are not interested. I mean, they can't really act on it because it's a conflict of interest. So the state's attorney's office will be handling that one. So both of those cases are supposed to be coming up shortly.
Didn't something come up when that case was filed about the engineer working irregular hours with improper rest relief between shifts?
Right. Yeah. There were several things. He was supposed to go off on its break because he'd been working overtime. And then he left the engine. Then the engine, while it was idling, I guess caught fire. So the fire department was called, unbeknownst, I think, to the engineer, because I don't think they got him. Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Bry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Too loud.
Okay, well, on a slightly brighter note, Lionel has announced that the Chicago Lionel Railroad Club has again been named as a Lionel Ambassador Club of the Year. In a rather unique set of circumstances, 3 clubs attained the maximum points that could be earned in the Ambassador Club program. So it is a 3-way tie between the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club, TTOS Southern Pacific Division, and the Wichita Toy Train Club. This year we share the top spot with 2 other clubs where we are able to enjoy national camaraderie with these other fine clubs. And Lionel will again provide each of the 3 clubs with a one-of-a-kind car acknowledging their attaining the #1 spot in the Ambassador Club program.
Great, congratulations.
Yes.
Oh,
And
definitely.
They're gonna put up a banner at I think they said Toy Fair, I'm not sure, acknowledging the 3 clubs, and also a poster containing photographs of the members of the 3 clubs. And I was looking around for something to bring in, and I found this sort of unique little diesel switch engine that someone had given me. Said it had been his when he was younger. I think he was around 50 at the time, and I've had it for about 10 years now. But it is a Marx Alco switch engine, white and orange, heralded with the circle I for the Illinois Central, with the Illinois Central Gulf stenciled on the sides of the cover over the engine. And I took the Marks Johnny Scissorhand coupler off the back and put a Lionel coupler on it from a DC switch engine. It's a great little puller. It's never going to win any beauty prizes unless I enter it in the ugliest little engine of the year contest. But, you know, it's cute and it runs, and it's sort of in a low light condition because the hood over the engine is white spray paint over an orange body. It sort of gives a ghostly glow.
Yeah, well, actually the IC symbol is correct for the ICG. What it was, when you went IC, it used to have a line in between it. With ICG, they just left it like that, solid. But yeah, it's a perfect representative of the ICG.
And someone spent just a little bit of time when they were making the mold, because molded into the sides of the cab, you can see the rod and the canvas shade
On some of them, yeah.
and you know, it may have been an inexpensive engine, but it was not cheaply done. There's enough detail in it to make it
What it is.
what it is. Yeah, and, you know, and it has the old steam engine type sunroof, where they could slide the panels back and get a little flow through air conditioning through the cab to get away from a little of the heat thrown off by the diesel engine.
Yeah. Going down the two rails at 25 miles an hour. That's easy. Slide the windows open, 225.
Hey, I remember 440 in those nasty old Dodge Royal Monaco squad cars. Sometimes it was all you could get and you were grateful for it. That and open hydrants. Loved open hydrant calls. We'd roll the windows up, turn the blue lights on, and slow roll through the open hydrant.
Now, we can go on to a couple of incidents, too, that I got a hold of. We got residents upset about a reactivation of a South Dakota rail line. Residents of Brandon, South Dakota got a rude awakening this month when the officials of the Ellis and Eastern Railroad said they will rebuild the railroad's tracks through the community. The line has not been operational since 1994. Ellis and Eastern wants to rebuild the track between Brandon and Manly, Minnesota, to link with the former Minnesota Southern Railroad. It started operating earlier this month. Ellis and Eastern is owned by Sweetman Construction Company, primarily transporting aggregate products for Concrete Material Company. By rebuilding the line, the connection with the Minnesota Southern at Manly, the railroad can use the route to interchange with the Union Pacific in Worthington, Minnesota. Brandon resident Jared Johnson, who we will brand as a NIMBY, purchased a home at 601 South Main Street less than a year ago and voiced frustration because his house is less than 50 feet from the center line of the tracks. He said his realtor told him the city of Brandon planned to make a bicycle path where the tracks are located. The Sioux Falls Argus Leader reported in the local newspaper. Resident Corey Sitzman, who owns a house in Brandon, reinforced Johnson's bicycle path claim. When we purchased this lot and built the home here, that's exactly what we were told, just as he was. That's what Brandon was putting in a bike trail, and that rail line would be tore out. I think it's really sad that we've been lied to for 10 years on this whole deal.
Oh, what did they expect from a real estater? We had that happen to us. We went out to a place, it was a horse farm being redeveloped. It was on the DuPage side of Hanover Park. So it was next to what was then just became the CCP, the Chicago Central and Pacific, the
Right.
old Iowa line. So we're looking nice houses, 10 rooms, all one floor, full basement underneath. So you can imagine the layout I could have in that thing. Couldn't swing a deal. So the house we were looking at would have been right next to the tracks. So wife goes, can I ask him? Yeah, I'll ask him. What's the story on those train tracks there? Those are abandoned. There's been no trains on there for years. She nudges me and I said, there's 8 trains a day. The real estaters will say anything to get the sale.
After 10 years, and they couldn't pull up the tracks or asphalt over them, this guy really thought they were going to put a bike path there?
Yep.
Okay. After meeting with representatives from Ellis and Eastern and Concrete Materials, Brandon City Administrator Brian Reed updated the City Council on plans to repair and use the railroad. The Argus leader reported. Reed said the tracks between Manly and Brandon will be repaired over the next 2 to 3 years. When repairs are complete, the Ellis and Eastern plans to store some cars in town. One alderwoman complained about car storage, but Alderman Blaine Jones has acknowledged that the railroad existed before the city. Reed said the trains will operate from the concrete in Carson, South Dakota to Sioux Falls, are slated to double from 20 to 30 cars to 40 to 60 cars with the operation of the new quartzite mine north of Corson. It'll be open in the next 5 to 7 years. Production at the current sand mine will increase in the next few years as well. They supply sand for the fracking.
I don't think Ellis and Eastern ever filed abandonment with the STB. They might have been just rail.
Nobody even before them did.
Right. I think they were just rail banked. That's nothing new. Some guy lived across the street from the Wisconsin Central. Well, then Sioux Line, Wisconsin Central, whatever, right just south of the Duval crossing, was complaining about the increase in train traffic. He says, I think I'll put my house up for sale. And he posted this on some news group. Within 24 hours, he got 6 offers from rail fans.
Cool.
There's this house that I've seen. It's been on the market in Pennsylvania. The house has video cameras because across the street is the Pennsy-Allegheny line. Kind of near Altoona. And he actually has video cameras and sound system set up in his basement so he could listen to the trains. And if anybody wanted trains, you could look right out your front door and sit on the porch and just watch the trains go by. Hasn't been sold yet.
Sounds ideal to me, except it's in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Speaking of Pennsylvania, in Pottstown, Ross Rowland, he's reviving the American Freedom Train name for a proposed Veterans Tour. He came out a few years ago with the Yellow Ribbon Express and was trying to get private sponsorship like he did with the American Freedom Train. So he's getting out to do it again. He's pushing harder now. Ross Rowland, the man behind some of the largest steam events ever organized during the diesel era. He's reviving the name to help promote a 3-year cross-country tour behind steam. Rowland first proposed what he dubbed the Yellow Ribbon Express back in 2015. The exhibit would hit 125 cities in 3 years, raise money for veterans who have been injured since 9/11. Rowland is currently looking for corporate sponsors to fund the construction and operation of the train, an effort to bring more attention that he will redub it the American Freedom Train, or American Freedom Train 2.0. The name fits our mission perfectly, Rowland tells Trains New Wire. Rowland also says that the internet age, the American Freedom Train name is easier to promote and find online than the originally proposed Yellow Ribbon Express. He says the entire effort will cost about $100 million and that all the money raised from the ticket sales will go to the veterans' charities. Roland initially hoped to have the train running by 2017, but at this point he is hesitant to put an exact date when it will happen. He says once the train gets corporate sponsorship, it will take 2 years to construct and organize. While some have said it's a lofty goal, Roland says he will not be deterred and reminds people he was rejected by dozens of companies before Pepsi signed on as one of the original sponsors in the 1975-76 Freedom Train. The highlight of the proposed train for rail enthusiasts will be the motive power. Roland says the new Freedom Train will be headed up by 2 mainline steam locomotives, including his own Chesapeake, Ohio 614, going to be a steam-hauled extravaganza. And at this time, we'd like to take a station break for station identification.
And you are listening to Chicago Junction on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Monday, July the 17th, the year 2017. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich, Illinois. And now back to Chicago Junction and our panel.
Oh, man, that was something else, wasn't it, guys? You folks don't know what you missed. We got to take more breaks.
You mentioned the Ellis and Eastern and the people complaining. Down in Alton, Illinois, there's people complaining about the chain link fence being put up to keep the high-speed rail line safe. And the complaint is the fence is not as good as the fence they built north of the city. They put the wrought iron type or Nate fence stopped at the city limits, and inside Alton they got a 6-foot chain link fence. And the people are all upset saying, how come we get a chain link and those people get a nice fence?
Who paid for it?
Well, IDOT said they did a review. They had an engineering firm come in and said, well, from this point on, you just put up a chain link because it's cheaper. They're basically running out of money for the project. So they said the best way to stretch the money, put in a cheaper fence. Chain link does well. But the people are still upset. They said, well, meantime, IDOT has planted trees and bushes, so you really don't see the fence. But they're still complaining down in Alton, Illinois.
Of course. If it isn't a one thing, it's another.
So it's the NIMBYs like to have a good time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they, you know.
Aren't they the first cousins to the whiners? I'm sorry, I'm being sarcastic again.
Actually, you're being truthful, but that's okay. Okay. Finally, some good news for the long. There was a group in Minnesota that started up called Coalition for Sustainable Rail. And they have a website and everything. And what they wanted to do was rebuild a steam locomotive. The hope was rebuild a steam locomotive and actually try to set a new speed record, but using biofuel.
Okay.
And, you know, like taking wood chips and stuff or sugar cane, like
French
which they
fried
burn,
beans.
you know, well, use sugar cane that's the what's left of the husk and everything like that, and sit there and mash and make pellets out of it, or briquettes, if you will. And they had went through and searched for a locomotive, and they found a very nice one. Santa Fe Hudson 3463 in Topeka, Kansas. And they were going to do that and rebuild it and do the fire. It's set as an oil burner now, but they were going to rebuild it so they could have a regular firebox and put a whole stoker package in. Then after they do it, after the engine's all finished, they were actually going to give it back to the city of Topeka. But there was a 3-people group that didn't like the idea, so they formed a historical society, and they take everything to court and actually tied it up in courts for 5 years. and the judge ruled finally in favor of the group trying to restore. And they said that the engine's coming back to Topeka, so you have that time while it's gone to build a shelter and everything and have ready to protect it. At this point, I'm going to stop right now because I understand we have somebody online. Is that true?
Yes, it is.
Is this Cynthia?
It sure is.
And I understand your subject is going to be vacationing along the South Shore.
Right.
Okay, then my notes were correct.
Yeah.
Well, my name's Brian. I'm sort of acting like host questionnaire, and I will try to put the fire under the rest of the panel.
Okay.
But start off, please.
Oh, well, I thought maybe you would ask questions. This is all based on my book about the Chicago South Shore and South Bend Rail Line. And I built the book around a tour. I had been giving tours on the train for a while, and somebody suggested that I do a book on it. So the back half of the book is really a tour guide.
So in other words, you're like what they do with some of the Park Service has been doing, putting a person on the train and talking about the area they're going through?
Well, yes, I've done that. Yes, that's how it started. And now I've got this book out, and people can take the book with them. And I suggest they start at Millennium Station in downtown Chicago and ride all the way out to South Bend, because the corridor is really spectacular. You go from inner city buildings and rails and the hardscape, and you go past Lake Calumet and the port area, and then next thing you know, you're out in the Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore. And then beyond that, surprise, surprise, it's all farmland between Michigan City and South Bend. So it's really a nice trip, and I've done it several times now, so I can attest to that personally.
Well, are there any, like Indiana Dunes, I've been around that station in that area. That seems to be a nice area to walk around and everything.
Well, a lot of times I've suggested to people in my neighborhood, I'm kind of between Hegewisch and Hammond on the state line.
Okay.
And it's about maybe an hour ride from here to Beverly Shores. And you can get off there, especially in the summertime. The station is a working station in terms of a waiting room. But behind that are the original station agents' quarters, and they've been turned into a museum of Beverly Shores. And they also have an art gallery in there with, I assume, changing exhibits. But what I'm getting at is I suggest, well, if you have a whole day, just take the train out there, do the museum, and then if you're in the mood, you can walk. It's about a mile to the beach from there. And you see Beverly Shores, and it's a whole different atmosphere from where we live over here on the state line. And then you walk back and you flag the train down at the end of the day and go back home. So it's kind of a nice round trip.
Oh, so it doesn't automatically stop at Beverly Shore?
Last I heard or experienced, Beverly Shores was a flag stop.
Oh, okay.
But it can be done.
Oh, so remember to bring your red hankies with you.
Right. Yeah. And don't step beyond the yellow line.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, be careful.
What other stop would be good? Well, I know Michigan City would be an excellent stop to get off at.
Yes, if you can arm yourself with a little map of downtown Michigan City, you can get off at 11th Street, and from there you can walk to Lighthouse Place, where all the malls are, the, what do you call it, discount outlets.
Outlet stores, yeah.
And Franklin Avenue, I believe it is. It's the north and south drag there. They have got all kinds of restaurants and antique shops and things for you to amuse yourself with.
Money traps.
It's a bit of a hike, but I think you could also make your way to the Lighthouse Museum that's on the water, on the lake. And then, of course, there's Washington Park, which has a zoo and so forth. So, if you look online, kind of plan your trip a little bit and find out how Michigan City is set up, but it's a doable thing. And same for South Bend, actually. You get off at the end of the line, you're in the airport, and there's a aviation museum upstairs, and there are gazillions of bus connections, so you can get in and out of the city, or you can take a cab in and out. And there are lots of museums and nice restaurants and things to explore out there as well. I sound like I'm the Indiana Chamber of Commerce here.
I'll put you in touch with my friend over there at the Visitor Center.
Oh, yeah, right, okay.
Does your book follow the posters, the 1930-ish posters that the South Shore put out?
Well, the book has some of them. I did reproduce a few of them, but I don't know what you mean by follow exactly.
I guess what I'm asking is, does the storyline in your book correspond to the posters, or are the posters just highlights?
Actually, the posters are a segment of the book. The posters were developed by, oh golly, now you're making me forget the man's name.
I'm sorry.
The man who owned the railroad in the 1920s, he was the big Sam Insull. He bought the railroad in the 1920s, and part of his rehabilitation of it and promotion of it included hiring artists to create those posters, because his scheme was that he would own this railroad, but in order for the railroad to pay for itself, he had to encourage businesses to relocate out to the Calumet region and farther east into the dunes. And he was also trying to get people to build houses out there, because then they would become commuters. You know, they all worked in Chicago. They would commute to Ogden Dunes or Beverly Shores or what have you. So those posters, if you look at them closely, if you get there are a couple of books out there on them, you'll see that he's promoting Ogden Dunes, the ski jump in Ogden Dunes, or spend the weekend in Beverly Shores, and then that famous one where the geese are flying through the autumn beaches, and they're going home. You could be going home with them if you lived out here. And the posters, actually, they appeared in all sorts of public buildings in Chicago. They even put them in schools. Any place where you could tempt somebody to buy a lot and build a house, or buy a lot of property and put up a factory, and of course use the South Shore freight line as your transportation method. In fact, he had a plan where I think he was offering companies something like $25,000 incentive if they would build a factory out along his line out there in Indiana. So the man was always thinking.
It sounds a little bit like James Hill.
Yeah, well, they were all like that.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs. They had to make the money.
Yeah, and I believe you were talking about the posters and asking about it. Just this last month at the Visitor Center in Hammond.
Okay.
At Exit 3. They had a whole exhibit of all the posters for the South Shore.
Well, there you are. Yeah. Well, you could see what I'm talking about there, because it's all promotion. Promoting the area. There's nothing particularly historic about the subject matters. They're all, here are the steel mills. This is the workshop of the world. Build your factory here too. You'll make lots of money. That kind of thing.
Well, yeah, I understand, and also, I guess they also for excursion, if you go on, I understand that there's like a sports team out there, some low-range college or something, that they could take the. Oh yeah, that's the name of it, Notre Dame. I'm Navy, okay.
I see. Okay.
He can't help himself.
But anyway, between that and my neighbors. They're alumni. But yeah, they used to do sports trains too, correct?
Right. When there was a big game, especially with a Chicago team like Northwestern, they would charter cars, entire cars, for the fans to go one direction or the other. Depended on the game involved. But there was a story about one night the boys, the team was coming back to Notre Dame, and the train was delayed for some reason. Oh, I know. The train, you all know the technical terms for this. The train was stopped, and the conductor would not let it move because he hadn't got the go-ahead signal. He didn't know what was ahead, so he stood there, and he stood there, and he stood there, and it was like 3 in the morning or something before they got into South Bend, and the boys' curfew was at 11, and they caught holy you-know-what from the administration there, the father, whoever at the time, and finally the South Shore executives had to go in and explain that the boys were not at fault. It was the train, because they would not move until they got the all clear sign. So.
And he made them do 20 Hail Marys, right?
Something like that, right?
Yeah, twice around the beads.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What you bring to mind is you're talking about the short trips and all, but yeah, I mean. Any of the passenger lines here in Chicago could do that.
Sure.
I mean,
I was out in Elmhurst last weekend, and I was looking down the railroad tracks towards Chicago and thinking, this is perfect. I think it's the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy that runs.
Yeah, the Burlington Northern Santa Fe.
Yeah. Okay. So you get on the commuter train and you go out to Elmhurst. It lets you off right there in downtown. You're within steps of the park, which has all sorts of historical buildings and things to explore, and then there's restaurants up and down the street, and it's a perfect day out of the city. If you want to do that.
You could take Metro up to Kenosha.
Okay.
We go the other direction.
Yeah, right.
It'll let you off. You're not that far from the lakefront. You walk 6 blocks, you're down there. They've got the whole rebuilt lakefront there.
I see. Okay.
With Civil War Museum and such.
Or you can take the streetcar in Kenosha.
Or a streetcar you
and
could
they
ride
have a
around
streetcar.
that you could actually pick up at the station.
See, they're trying really hard to make use of railroads. I wish the public would come to that understanding.
You even take day trips like, get your passport out and go on up to Milwaukee.
Right. You need a visa to get into Indiana.
Okay. But especially to go to the Pierogi Festival.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think you can get there by train.
I can get to the city. I can make it to Whiting.
Can you?
Yes, I can.
Oh, it'll stop there for you? Okay. Is that Amtrak?
No. I mean, I can get close to Whiting. I got it made.
Okay. Right.
He likes the angry Amish.
And who would that be?
It's a rock and roll band that go on stage costumed as if they were Amish farmers.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they played in Weird Al's video, didn't they?
Yeah, I Want to Build Your Barn.
Are they playing at Pierogi?
They have. I've seen videotape of them.
Oh my God! I bet they're a hoot.
They are. They are so out of character for someone in the visage of an Amish group of men. They all have blonde shoulder-length hair and the bib overalls, and it will shake your reality.
Well, then they are successful.
There you go. Oh, jeez.
So, any other questions about the South Shore?
Yes, about the train station in Michigan City. It's up for sale again. The old station there on...
oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was out there last weekend and came down from Michigan into Michigan City. Hoped to see a train, of course didn't. Then followed Route 12, which is next to the tracks, all the way back into Chicago.
Okay.
And it's a nice drive next to the tracks there, but I didn't see a train the whole time.
Oh, well, I almost hit one when I was working on the book. I became so involved in taking a picture of the oncoming train that I forgot where I was, and it was almost on the tracks. Not smart. But I think that's probably why they want to move those tracks. They want to move them farther north out of downtown,
Well, yeah, everybody wants to get them out of the street.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's going to be a great loss for a different experience.
That is true.
You know, you got to do what you have to do. And then what they're doing here in Hammond with the South Shore, and they're going to put that spur down into Lowell through Dyer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've read some article that they're still in the planning stages, and now it has to go to the next level. So we're years from it yet, but they're getting closer. And South Shore apparently has bought up probably all the buildings from the state line, maybe 3-4 blocks west or east of there, along Goslin Street, because that's where the station will be, and all the redevelopment and parks and parking lots and all that sort of thing. So it'll happen one of these days.
Well, hopefully we'll be alive to see it happen.
Yeah.
All the right-of-way is there, all the way.
Yeah.
It's all set, yeah. They're just shaking hands to see who's going to make the most money out of the deal.
Yeah, probably.
And counting fingers after the handshake. Would you be kind enough to give us the name of this book again?
I would be happy to. It's called Along the Chicago, South Shore, and South Bend Rail Line. And it's published by Arcadia.
And we can get that online?
Absolutely. You can get it through Arcadia, or you can try Amazon. No problem.
Well, thank you very, very much for calling in.
Well, I thank you for inviting me and letting me have my spiel here. This has been fun.
Hey, you come up with another book, we'll have you back. We already had it's your second time talking to us, I believe.
Yeah, I also have the Chicago and Western Indiana.
Yeah, don't forget that.
Yeah. So, well, maybe I'll give you another call in 6 months or so and pull your whistles or something.
All right, we'll let.
Okay.
No problem. I would love to meet you one of these days.
Well, any day now. Come out to some of the railroad shows on this end of the world during the holidays or something. I'll be selling the books again on, I'll have tables and stuff like that.
All right. Well, if you ever make it to the DuPage show, you definitely see me.
Okay. All right. We'll see what we can do.
All right. Well, thank you again, Cynthia, and you have a great day.
Yeah. Have a good summer. Don't forget to take the train. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that's right. It's a great idea. You forget about all the trips you can take from the city. Take little day trips. Hello, Ron.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for sitting in.
I don't know if it's on.
We need...
I think Mr. DeVita cut me off. There we go. Yeah, we cheat.
Okay, we're cheating.
We make. Oh, now he's got it on. No,
Yes.
there it is. Okay.
Okay, we got to listen to Kevin again. I love the Facebook page on Utopia.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was... man, I hope they really hope they build it here.
It would be nice.
What got me is I know that they use all types of large-scale trains, whether it be LGB, Pico, or even Bachman. I'll tell you what, I thought it was great that Thomas walked around with that beer cart right behind it.
There's nothing wrong with Bachman. Bachman
No.
is a good starter for people.
It was a good starter set, and they've actually improved so much on their locomotives.
Yes.
And they were the perfect starter, and they've perfected their stuff. I have no problems with them.
Right.
But like I said, I loved it with Thomas going by with the beer car. Let's have realism.
You mentioned Bachman. I told you the story once before. I had pulled into the Walmart lot at 83rd and Stewart, and the guy's got a van, and it's parked there blocking the aisle. So I'm waiting for him to, back into where he wants to go. And the driver's door is hanging wide open, and the radio's cranked up to about 43 Google decibels. and it's Bachman Turner Overdrive playing Long Train Running. I said, okay, this was just meant to be.
You know, going back to that South Shore, that I don't know if she touched on it. Did she touch on Hudson Lake at all?
No.
It's still a resort area down there, and right along the tracks. I mean, like from the distance from our studio to the garage over here is the old Green Lantern Ballroom that's still standing.
Ah.
And it's been under multiple different managements over the year. It's still standing. I don't know if it's even open right now. It was a restaurant for a while in the bank. They used the ballroom as a banquet hall. But back, within the last, I want to say within the last 10 years, one of the Dixieland bands around here would rent out a South Shore car and take a whole group of people down there, and they'd play down there on a Sunday afternoon.
No kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's still standing right there, and back in the day, the South Shore was the way to get over to that place. Of course, there's a lot less stations now along that route. They don't even, they just closed them down. They didn't even make them flag stops. I think Hudson Lake is probably, I think, one of the only stations between Michigan City and South Shore right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I can't wait for my daughter to decide she's going to leave my granddaughter and grandson with us for a couple of days, and she and her husband disappear, because I want to jump on the South Shore out in Hedwich and take the kids out to Michigan City, because they would love to ride the train.
Oh yeah. Kind of wish they had a bus there to take you right over to, on the weekends, take you right to the Heston Steam Museum, because it's not that far from there.
It's about an hour
I was there last weekend.
from Michigan City, isn't it? About an hour from Michigan City, isn't it?
No,
Less than that.
Less than that, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you could pick up 1000N in Michigan City
Okay.
and take it right there. Then you'll pass the new I Love Toy Train store.
Ooh.
Where'd they move to?
They're on the other side of 1000N. They're on 1000N heading, if you were if you got on 1000N in Michigan City before you was it route I forget the name of the road.
They finally moved out of the old house.
Yeah, the old house. They've been out of it for a while. They just opened up this place like last year.
That was not that going to scout camp up at Owassipee wasn't enough of a reward, but when I went to Owassipee, I would always route myself into New Buffalo to go to the train store. And you can't go into that store. I mean, you could super glue your hands in your pockets and you're still going to come out of that store buying something.
Oh yeah.
Things jump off the shelf and into your pocket, so you have to.
But you can use the store as a reason to stop in New Buffalo. I go for Oinks,
Okay. Or is it,
which was just a block up.
yeah, right next to the fruit stand. They had a really cool Ford delivery van painted up for Oinks.
Yes, they did. Yes, they do. And it's coming. It's coming to the end of the road. Do we have more stuff to talk about? Yes, we got Ron here.
That's right, Ron. How about filling us in on the South Shore going to Lowell, Indiana, real quick? Since that was brought up twice already.
They've been talking about that now for a good, I want to say 6-7 years, and just arguing which way it's going to go and how it's going to go and how's it going to go through downtown Hammond. Like I said earlier, all the right-of-way is still there. Some of it still has track on it. Some of it, the track's been pulled up. It's just trying to decide where it's going to go and who's going to benefit out of it as far as, I want to say profiting. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but they want to make sure that the train's going to make a profit.
Yeah.
Okay? So going to Lowell I think it should actually go a little farther than Lowell. Because Lowell, yeah, while Lowell's a good distance, there's still commuters that travel further. Yes. Yes.
Ah. Well, it reminds me, like the story you're talking about everything being there when they were building the Long Beach light rail. 80% of it is track where the old Pacific Electric used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to buy that land.
Yeah.
All the Pacific Electric, when they tore up all that stuff, for the buses, when they finally figured out, yes, it was a conspiracy to get rid of all that stuff, la 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 la. And, and so, yeah, where the old Pacific Electric was, and the Long Beach trolley is now, streetcar system. And it goes all the way right into Union Station.
The only thing I know that they did decide on for the new branch, it's not going to be electrified. They're going to have a diesel electric going on.
Really?
Yeah. The engine will be able to operate out and overhead or by battery.
Oh, they're going to do a DP.
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
So once it gets off the main line by Hammond over there will be no overhead.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting how they merge the two
Well,
products.
I mean,
have.
they've done it with locomotives before,
Yeah.
like the old FL9s. But I understand that the newer ones are less fire catching.
Right, but what I'm saying is they're going to have brand new passenger cars for that, because I don't know if they can't use what they have right now because those are tied to the overhead. So they're going to have to build everything.
Yeah.
Which is what's causing a lot of trouble.
And then the engine will have to provide the HEP.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting how to do it.
I was leafing through a book, and I can't remember the name of it, but there was a really nice picture of Union Station in 1937 in New York with the sunlight coming through the windows and lighting up the grand lobby. And they said, it doesn't look like this anymore because of all the...
Wait a minute. Union Station.
Grand Central Station?
Grand
Grand
Central Station.
Grand Central Terminal.
And, it was like light coming through church windows in a great cathedral. But they said it doesn't look like this anymore because all the buildings have been built up around it.
Well, Penn Station was the same way. But somehow when you looked at it, because of all the brickwork on the inside, it looked dingy already, even with the light shining through. But yeah, you're right. All the skyscrapers.
What I want to know is, I was just recently down in Union Station in Chicago. I worked downtown for over 40-some years. When did they air condition that place? Because that station was never air conditioned, and now it's air conditioned.
Well,
the main hall. This must be all part of the new for the future. Or?
Well, it could be. I guess when they rebuilt that, put up that structure across the street from it, when they took out the other part of the station and put that in, they probably...
Yeah, because I dreaded it. I'll walk through the station, but I dreaded it because I know how hot it always is, and it was a 95-degree day out. And I walked down going, wait a minute, I need a coat. How come it's so cold in here? So yeah, the downtown Union Station, the Great Hall, is now air conditioned. And they're doing a lot of work along the sides over there, rehabbing it. They found some new rooms and everything. They're going to remodel and. Yeah,
and they decided they're going to keep using the Grand Hall for a waiting room as a waiting room.
Good.
And not just a ballroom.
Your turn.
Well, we're on the air.
Yes, we are.
I know that. I was mentioning in the beginning we have wanted to mention the passing of William Witham. He was 75 years old. He passed away at the beginning of July. He was the curator, retired curator for the museum, Smithsonian Institute, the Museum of Transportation. He replaced Jack White Jr. when he retired, and he set up some great exhibitions in here. Withun was a lifelong rail fan. He was in the Air Force, and officer in the Air Force, and he got out. He didn't actually retire, and he went and got his doctorate. But he loved trains. He grew up with the Southern Pacific. He actually fired by Black River and Western number 60, and also Sam Freeman's Florida East Coast Pacific number 148, when it was running up in northern Jersey. And our prayers go out to the Withun family.
Is he the gentleman that was instrumental in the St. Louis Museum of Transportation?
Oh, he might have been. He advised a lot of museums. He was had worked with the California State Railroad Museum and such.
Of course, we gotta make that announcement.
Yes, we
That
do.
is a very important announcement.
We have a very important announcement to make to one of our members. We want to let him know we did not forget him, Mr. Dave DeVita, or John DeVita.
Him too.
Him too, John DeVita. We want to say happy birthday.
Well, thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That made my day.
Sunday. This
Sunday.
coming Sunday, yes.
Oh, it's this coming Sunday.
Yes.
Ah.
He doesn't look bad for a lad of 16.
I wish I felt that. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. I really appreciate that. That made my day.
Oh. Do you have any more news from the light rail division?
Kenosha, I can give you a real quick update there. A few weeks ago, one of the cars, I'm not sure which number it was, split the switch at the barn. And when it split the switch, half the train stayed on one track, half the train stayed on the other track, but it hit a line pole.
Ooh.
It buckled the floor, buckled the side of the car. So right now the car is in the barn, and they're deciding how to fix it, because that's all involved federal funds over there. But the biggest problem is Fed wants to know how much it's going to cost, and Kenosha, all they can say is, we don't know. It's a antique vehicle, basically, when you think about it. And so there's no way to determine, because a lot of the parts are going to have to be built new, because it's hard to find parts for an old PCC. So they want to fix the car, but that's where it stands right now. So the car's still in the barn, but it's got a little V for victory in the left side of it. Yeah. Yeah, but it did buckle the floor and everything, so we need a whole new floor. But until they can figure out what it's going to cost. They still got other cars, so they got plenty of cars.
Yes, they got the cars to cover it.
Yeah.
They would like to put this back and keep it in one piece.
And hopefully Kenosha government doesn't get involved in it, because it was Kenosha politics that put a kibosh to the expansion of the streetcar downtown, bringing up things like, well, the cars cost $1 million to build new and everything else. And they were using comments like that to get people, to scare people, saying, well, why are we going to spend millions of dollars to build new cars, instead of saying that while a brand new car would cost $1 million, we have 6 cars in our barn right now that are ready to go.
Yeah.
So by using the money aspect, that scared a lot of people into voting, and that's why there's no expansion right now.
Well, NIMBYs have a way to do that.
Mm-hmm. We Energies had a lot to do with that too. So
I mean, it's like everybody's complaining. They're writing the negative stories about the California high-speed line and why it's taking so long to get the track built and such like that. And it looks like it might have some. And I'm going, how many court cases were thrown at the high-speed rail? And they had to spend the money on lawyers. See, a lot of people aren't thinking about that. And, I mean, there's two sides to every story, and when when you can get any lawsuit started just with a little frivolous falsehood. I mean, look at all the problems they had in Indiana. They're having in Indiana with the two cities with the old nickel plate line for the museum. Two cities want to get rid of it, but they're telling everybody that it's all unsafe and everything when it's untrue.
Yep.
And the museum is now fighting back on that. They are putting a court suit for government interference with the townships, because even the people of the towns are saying, why tear it up? It does benefit us.
Yeah. This is the one in Noblesville, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a money maker. You take that train, you go north into town, and while they gave you an hour to go find your own restaurant and everything, that train was packed.
Yeah, or going just from the parking lot to the state fair.
Yeah.
Keeping down traffic.
Yeah. People don't see that though.
Yeah, that's why I'm really cheering for Florida with that Starbright or
Bright Star.
Bright.
Brightliner.
There you go.
High-speed rail.
Yep. Did you see the story on Yahoo the other day? With they've been working on the tunnel for the subway in Los Angeles for years. I think they're 3 years into the La Brea station excavation. They have a Paleolithic consultant.
Yes.
About every 3 months, they unearth fossils.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the La Brea Tar Pits is known as a heavy fossil area.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they were going to probably uncover a fossil or two.
Just dug up a young mammoth. All the bones. Not to mention the giant sloth. But it's just weird that they got to have a fossilized bone specialist on salary.
Because they don't want the bones thrown away. They could use them for trading fodder with other museums.
You're probably correct.
Well, it's a
you
good,
usually are.
Hey, it's a good as tale as any. It's like we got a bunch of boulders in when they were making the railway, when they did the expansion for the Garden Railway at the Botanic Garden. And the stones came up from southern Indiana, or Illinois. Well, they're sitting there looking through the boulders. All of a sudden, it got a couple of flat rocks, like they thought was shale. Turned it over, had fossils. And they had coral, fossilized coral in the rocks. When they were built, and they use them for the dinosaur dig. But yeah, these were all coral fossils, sea life when southern Indiana was under. So
it just struck me odd that they've got this fossil consultant on the payroll.
Hey, they got a priest standing by in Hawaii for every building built. So they have to
feng shui.
Yeah, they got to do the gods. You got to have the prayer. You don't want Polly mad at you.
Nope.
That is part of the beliefs. So you have to respect the beliefs, no matter how ridiculous you think it might be. And
Well- The indigenous people of Chicago worship the almighty dollar.
you find that's a lot of places. All right. Does anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I do. Ron, have you got any information about East Troy?
Other than they're still running. I believe their operations right now at this time of year are, I do believe they have weekdays or at least Fridays. I know they're operating Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And they still have the dinner trains going. There's several dinner trains left. I don't think they're 100% sold out. For about $70 a person, you can get a good dinner, a nice 2-hour train ride. And now they go all the way to the east end. They go over Route 83 to the old exchange track out there where they used to attach to the CN.
Mm-hmm.
And now I believe they disconnected the track to that because there's no more freight on East Troy. So they stop in that park out there. They let you out for about 20 minutes, half hour, stretch your legs. In the meantime, on the train, they're cleaning off the dishes. And when you get back on the train, there's your dessert ready for you at your table. They do have one of the cars recently got hit by a SUV. The SUV can say rest in peace. The car got a little damage, but the SUV is shot.
Oh yeah, that was one of those heavy-duty South Shore cars.
No, it was the Minneapolis streetcar.
Oh really?
The Twin Cities streetcar, yeah. So it took some damage, so they're going to send that out to get fixed. And the one, I believe it was the Sheboygan car that got fried a little bit last year with lightning, because when lightning hit the building and the pole was still up at that time. That car's back and in operation now, so they're doing good out there. Yeah, I guess that's about it for East Troy. And Union's got the motors back for the electroliner, so they just have to be put into place, but they're still taking funds at IRM for the interior, to put the interior back and rehab a lot of the seats and things like that. You can buy for their fundraising, they have the original seats, they have the upholstery, and you can buy a piece of the original upholstery yet to donate your money. You get a piece of the upholstery, the original. But it's still apart, but like I say, they're going to put it back together. The engines are there, I mean the motors are there, and they just have to put everything else on the inside.
Yeah, because they've the one in Rockville.
The Liberty Liner, you mean?
Yeah, the Liberty Liner.
Yeah.
Is still running good,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they've done the cosmetic fixes that they needed. All they got to do is paint it now.
Yeah, they were lucky with that one. Well, the Electroliner, one of the biggest problems they're having, they're redoing the cabs. And the cab is like putting a 300-pound guy into a 2-foot box, because it's that tight to work around in there. So it's
same if you went into the cab of a GG1. It's actually more cramped than people realize.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's nice to see both of them going.
Yep.
And it's still got a nice bullet running right next to it.
Yeah.
Over there, Rock Hill Furnace. That's the place. Up in Orbizona. And let's see. Oh yeah, the new the last month's issue of the Railfan magazine, Railfan Railroad. If you go back to the On the Menu section, Mr. Porterfield wrote about the Nebraska Zephyr dinner train, and had a nice talk, talking with some of the guys who really got it going, John Rocky and his wife Lori, and a few of the other people. I happen to know John through the Kagers and such, and nice guy, and and he had a lot of nice things to say about the dinner train. If you ever have a chance to ride the dinner train out at the IRM, it is actually worth it. You can go to the IRM website to see when it might be going.
I think the last time they did it was Memorial Day. They got a couple more coming up.
Yeah.
Channel 20 in Chicago, WYCC, which is the City College's public education channel, is rerunning restorations, classic restorations, I believe on Saturday afternoon. Last Saturday I was able to watch them rebuild the carousel. 2 of the episodes deal with steam locomotive number 3.
Yeah, Sierra Railroad number 3.
And then the other one is a fish and wildlife car.
From the Mid-Continent Railway Museum.
And then, strictly as a sidebar, and for Mr. DeVita, they rebuild a Fox Aaron's 1923, I believe, Fox Aaron's fire engine. So, check if that is something that interests you. Channel 20 on Saturday afternoon.
Well, the Smithsonian Channel has been running for the last couple of weeks combat trains, starting the use of railroads in war. And it started, the first episode dealt with the American Civil War, which is actually the first war to make use of railroad mobility, and the Crimean War. And then basically because of the hospital trains that were done. And they've, number 2 was the First World War, and number 3 is on World War II. So check your listings wherever, if you got the Smithsonian Channel, and check it out. And there is a new movie remake coming out. They are remaking Murder on the Orient Express. When I went and saw Wonder Woman, they showed that in the movie previews. So,
will it be worth seeing at the theater, or is it going to be a DVD?
No. This is, see it on the big screen. We have, they did a very good one there with the cast they had for the one done in the 70s. That always is a real good one.
That was the one with Sean Connery playing the colonel from the East Indian Army.
I know that
George
Albert
Kennedy.
Finney. Albert Finney was Hercule Poirot.
Yeah, that's the one. Yes, that's the one.
Sean Connery, George Kennedy, Lauren Bacall, if I remember correctly.
Maggie Smith.
Yeah. You mentioned the military trains. Way back in the 2nd or 3rd year of Classic Toy Train magazine, and they're in their 15th year now, they did an article on taking one of the futuristic tanks from their in-house game and making it into taking a gondola and converting it into the lead car for a military train. A modern military train where they'd have the ability to blow obstacles off the track.
Oh, you mean putting guns in them?
Yeah, heavy guns.
Well, if you get a hold, if you get a hold of encyclopedias from locomotive encyclopedias from that era of locomotives and cars, and you'll see how they converted a lot of cars for the war effort. Anti-aircraft guns, you had carrying mortars, I mean, Baldwin Locomotive Works made a 14-inch naval railgun for World War One, and one still exists. It is on display at the old Navy base in Washington, D.C.
They used a very, very massive model tank from whatever 4,000. Their game. It almost looks like a Sturmpanzer, and they put it in a gondola.
Well, that's like what they do, but in real life you can see what they did, and so what they do in fantasy, somebody already thought of.
I think I'm not.
Never say there's never been a prototype.
I'm not absolutely certain, but I think Marx actually made a stamped metal production military train that had a rail gun on the front end of it. I seem to remember seeing a picture of it.
Well, Marx had military train, yes. They had one that actually spring-loaded and shot little wood bullets. Was not PC correct, would be in today's language. Kids had fun with it, so yeah. Made out of cotton. Any others?
No, sir. I think I've drawn a blank.
Well, then I believe this train is pulling into the station. So we will say happy rails to you for our missing Jack Red Ryan. As our express comes into the station, we want to thank you for joining us on our journey through the wonderful world of trains. Chicago Junction is a production of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and can be listened to on the website at www.windycityhometown.com, where you can listen to tonight's broadcast and all of our past episodes, and also sample some of the other great programs that are being offered. I'm your announcer, Brian Blue. Until next month, when we journey to Chicago Junction.
You have been listening to Chicago Junction on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Monday, July the 17th, the year 2017. Chicago Junction was produced by Jack Ryan, directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zeflik of WRHS FM Norwich and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Chicanda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Thursday, July the 13th, the year 2017. Until next time, be safe and thanks for listening. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM, Norwich, Illinois.